Good morning, class. So today we're actually going to continue our discussion on point of view. If you remember from previous class times, we've already discussed 2 points of view. We're going to go ahead and review those points of view. We learned about first person and second person point of view. So in first person point of view, the narrator makes you feel like you're part of the story because they're going to use a whole lot of words like I and we. You're going to see sentences like, I would like to run at the park because we might see her there. So when the story is being told like this, you really feel like you're understanding the story and understanding the characters because the character is almost you. And it feels more like you're living out the story and you're actually going through the motions along with the narrator. But if a story is being told from the second person point of view, then that means that the narrator is talking to the reader and it feels a lot more like a conversation. You're going to see the word you a whole lot more here because you'll see sentences like, you should be able to understand this story. So when you see things like that, you'll know that it's second person, and you'll feel like you're having a conversation with the book, and like the narrator is almost talking to you, rather than first person when you feel like you're living out everything that's happening in the book. Today we're going to continue our conversation and point of view by moving on to third person. So third person point of view is very interesting because it's told from two perspectives. If you're reading the story from third person point of view, that means that the narrator is commenting on what is happening in the story, on different events and details, but is not necessarily inside of the characters and doesn't necessarily know everything. If you're reading the story that's being told from a third-person objective point of view, then you're going to be reading the story where the narrator doesn't really know all the details or all the emotions or what the characters are feeling, but the narrator is going to give you different pieces of information and different details and different events so that you can fill in all the information later. But if you're reading a story that's being told from the omniscient point of view, that means that the narrator is all-knowing. So the narrator knows exactly how all the characters are feeling and what they're thinking and what's going on inside of them, and is able to really show the reader what's going on. So the reader feels more into the book and feels like they really know how the characters are feeling. So a story like that's being told from a third-person point of view is going to use words like he, she, it, or they. And they're also going to use character names. But you're not going to see I or we, and you're not going to see the word you a lot. So as we talk more about this point of view, we're going to move on to our next book for the semester. We're going to be reading Eleanor and Park, which is told from a third-person omniscient point of view. This book is a love story, and I know that might not be exciting for everyone to hear, but there's a lot more to the story and a lot more themes that you're going to get to understand. So as the reader, you're going to get to see different lifestyles that people are living and different things that are happening at a family home that you might understand from experience or from hearing about someone else, or that you might not understand at all. But you're actually going to get to connect with someone, and you're going to get to kind of see how they feel about the situation. You're also going to get to see how someone would feel when they feel like they're an outcast or they feel like they're an outsider and they don't match up and measure up to the standards that are set for everybody else. And you might be able to really connect with that yourself, or you might be able to connect with it and understand other people better if they feel that way. So as we go on to the story, we're going to learn more about third-person omniscient point of view, but we're also going to see that this book is told from two perspectives. You're going to hear about Eleanor and Park. You're going to hear how they feel and what they're thinking and kind of how they're trying to understand everything around them and trying to understand each other. But we're going to understand more than they are as individuals because we get to see how Eleanor's feeling and then we get to see how Park's feeling. And we not only see their reactions and their responses, but we see their thoughts and their feelings going into those actions that they're going through. So in this first excerpt, at this point, you've learned that Eleanor doesn't have a very good home life, and she doesn't have her own phone at her house. And as we read later throughout the week, we're going to understand why that is. But for now, at this point in the story, we know that Eleanor is at a house where she does have access to a phone. And she's very excited because for the first time, she's going to actually be able to talk to Park, and she's actually going to be able to have a real conversation without everyone around listening. So I want everyone to turn in their books to page 108, and we're going to start reading where Eleanor is talking to Park, and she calls him a dork. "You're such a dork." She wiped her eyes. "Eleanor," he said, "why can't we see each other?" "God," she said, "don't. I'd almost stopped crying." Tell me, talk to me. Because, she said, because my stepdad would kill me. Why does he care? He doesn't care. He just wants to kill me. Why? Stop asking that, she said angrily. There was no stopping the tears now. You always ask that. Why? Like there's an answer for everything. Not everybody has your life, you know, or your family. In your life, things happen for reasons. People make sense. But that's not my life. Nobody in my life makes sense. Not even me, he asked. Ha, especially not you. Why would you say that? He sounded hurt. What did he have to be hurt about? At this point, we can see that Eleanor doesn't understand exactly why Park is feeling the way that he's feeling. And since it's told from third person, we're with Eleanor, and we also don't truly understand what he's feeling. But as we continue and move into his section, we're actually going to get to see why he's feeling what he's feeling and the way he's reacting. So as we continue here, why, she said. Yeah, he said, why? Why are you always so mad at me? I'm never mad at you, it came out as a sob. He was so stupid. You are, he said. You're mad at me right now. You always turn on me, just when we start to get somewhere. Get where? Somewhere, he said, with each other. Like a few minutes ago, you said you missed me. And for maybe the first time ever, you didn't sound sarcastic or defensive or like you think I'm an idiot. And now you're yelling at me. I'm not yelling. You're mad, he said. Why are you mad? She didn't want him to hear her cry. She held her breath. That made it worse. Eleanor, he said, even worse. Stop saying that. What can I say then? You can ask me why, you know. I promise I'll have answers. He sounded frustrated with her, but not angry. She could only remember him sounding angry with her once, the first day she got on the bus. You can ask me why, he said again. Yeah, she sniffed. Yeah. Okay. She looked down at the turntable, at her own reflection in the tinted acrylic lid. She looked like a fat-faced ghost. She closed her eyes. Why do you even like me? So when we reach this last section, we get to see that Eleanor is looking at her reflection and she's calling herself that. And so you get to kind of understand Eleanor more here. And you understand why she might be asking why Park likes her. Because if she's seeing this in her reflection and she's seeing someone that might not be worthwhile or might not be worthy of being liked by someone else, she doesn't understand what Park sees in her. But as we move on, we're going to get to see what Park is feeling and what he actually does think of her. So we're going to move on to Park's section. He opened his eyes. He sat up, stood up, started pacing around his room. He went to stand by the window, the one that faced her house, even though it was a block away and she wasn't home, holding the base of the car phone against his stomach. She'd asked him to explain something he couldn't even explain to himself. I don't like you, he said. I need you. So if you look at this part, we're going to actually get to hear Park's answer along with Eleanor, but not only do we see that, we get to see all the emotions and all the actions that go into that answer. Park paces around his room, and not only that, he goes and faces her house even though he knows that she's not there. And he takes a long time to answer this question. He takes a long time to think about it because he doesn't really know what the answer is. But all Eleanor gets is the answer from him. She hears him say that he needs her, and she gets to understand that, but she doesn't really get to see all the thought and the process that goes on behind it. So as a reader, we're getting to see both of these things because of the way this story is being told. So we're going to move to the back, and we're going to read a second excerpt from the book. So at this point in the book, a lot of things have happened with Eleanor, and things are worse than they started out as. And she's having to deal with a big problem in her life, and she knows that the best way for her to deal with it is for her to leave. But we're going to start with Park's section, and Park understands very little about what's going on with Eleanor. He knows that there's something wrong, and he knows there has to be a way to fix it, but he might not think it's as extreme because he doesn't know everything that's going on. But as the reader, we understand what's going on with Eleanor more. So on page 289, we're going to read Park's section. Eleanor pushed her curls out of her face one by one, like she was gathering her wits by hand. I have to go, she said. She was making more sense now, and more eye contact, but Park still felt like someone had turned the whole world upside down and was shaking it. You could talk to your mom in the morning, he said. Everything might look different in the morning. You saw what he wrote on my books, she said evenly. Would you want me to stay here? I just don't want you to leave, he said. Where would you go? To your dad's house? No, he doesn't want me. But if you explained, he doesn't want me. Then where? I don't know. She took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. My uncle said I could spend the summer with him. Maybe he'll let me come up early. To St. Paul. St. Paul, Minnesota? She nodded. But Park looked in Eleanor's eyes, and her hands fell to the table. "I know," she sobbed, slumping forward. There was no room to sit at the table next to her, so he dropped to his knees and pulled her onto the dusty linoleum floor. So at this point, we really get to see the fact that Park might not really understand what's going on with Eleanor, but he wants to be helpful, and he wants to do what's right for her, even if it's something like her leaving. So we're going to move on to Eleanor's section and see how she deals with the situation. "When are you leaving?" he asked. He pushed her hair out of her face and held it behind her head. "Tonight," she said. "I can't go home." "How are you going to get there? Have you called your uncle?" "No, I don't know. I thought I'd take the bus." She was going to hitchhike. She figured she could walk as far as the interstate, and then she'd stick out her thumb for station wagons and minivans, family cars. If she hadn't been raped or murdered or sold into white slavery by Des Moines, she'd call her Uncle Collect. He'd come to get her, even if it was just to bring her home. So here we get to see that Eleanor knows that she's going to be doing something Park is not going to like, and so she hides that from him. But as a reader, we actually get to see what she plans on doing, and we get to kind of think about what that's going to mean for her and how that's going to affect her later in the story. Park doesn't know what's going on any more than he can know, because all he gets to do is listen to what she's saying and watch how she reacts. So we're going to continue reading this book, and you're going to get to see even more about third-person omniscient point of view. But not only that, you're going to get to learn more about the themes of the story and more about what's going on. And I hope that you're very excited to read this book as we get to understand not only how this love can truly help these characters, but how it helps them find themselves and how it helps them learn to live a better life and to leave a situation that might not be the best for them and to grow up as people. So, I'll see you guys tomorrow.